The battle had already begun the moment they saw Milim. As planned, Leon, Elmesia, and Sylvia spread out around Milim. The three of them had a fellow student relationship with Sylvia as their master, so their movements were common. Oddly enough, even their power was similar. Leon's ultimate skill, King of Radiance, Sarion. Elmesia's ultimate skill, King of Heavenly Wind, Veldanava. And even Sylvia's ultimate skill, King of Thunderstorm, Indra. All contained authorities specialized in speed enhancement. Unlike Zalario, they don't have wings, but all three can engage in aerial combat without any issues. By using their authority to stabilize the space and create footholds, they can freely soar through the sky. It was thought that if they used this, they could toy with Milim. The team was also able to coordinate seamlessly, almost as if by instinct, and in that sense, it became the best team, even though it was put together on the spot. And so, the three spread out members took turns stepping forward to keep Milim in check. I'll go first. Leon would be the first to make the first move. It was the most dangerous role, but he'd accepted it naturally. Without waiting for a reply, Leon set it up. Meltbreaker. That was one of Leon's ultimate techniques. The principle is the same as Hinata's Melt Slash. The only difference is that in Leon's case, he is manipulating the spear particles through his authority. It went without saying that safety and stability meant Leon was higher up, and it was possible to maintain high-powered slashes for a long time. If he were to use this with all his might, he would become a 100 breaker, but since it wouldn't work anyway, he thought he'd wait and see first. He don't know if that decision was the right one or not. Tisk, you don't even feel like defending. Leon blurted out in frustration. The ultimate weapon known as Mythical Gradiate Flame Pillar wrapped in the brilliance of disintegration, was a fatal sword capable of slaying even demon lords. And yet, Milim continued flying toward the sacred tree without a care in the world. As they passed each other, it was definitely a direct hit. There was a definite sense of resistance in Leon's arm, and for a moment, he was startled, wondering if he might have inflicted a serious injury. However, it seemed that it was an unnecessary worry. Leon was greatly aware that he'd been underestimating Milim's Stampede. On her back was a pair of jet black wings. The crimson one horn that sprouted from its forehead shone even brighter and shone rainbow-colored. Other than her face, her bare skin had a mysterious pattern on it, and it was covered in a hard, shining dragon scale that dulled and changed color. Milim's form in battle had grown more sinister, but it wasn't just her appearance that had changed. Even her abilities had become isolated. Leon's sword only managed to scratch Milim's dragon scales. Even the spiritual particles that can cut through anything couldn't shatter Milim's star particles. Moreover, dragon scales regenerate. If the regeneration can't keep up, new scales will grow, so the actual damage was zero. Since he wasn't trying to defeat her, it wasn't a problem, Leon told himself, but anyone who saw it could tell it was nothing more than a display of reluctance to admit defeat. Following Leon, Sylvia made her move, but the result was similar. Although her master's reputation was completely shattered, no one could blame her here. It really is impossible, isn't it? Sylvia grumbled. Huh? You knew this from the start, didn't you? Leon replied with a determined look, but it was all too empty. Even if they used their ultimate technique, they can't even slow her down. It's understandable that they'd lose their willpower. Elmesia shouted to encourage the depressed pair. Alright. I'll increase her speed with the blessing of the wind, so don't give up and keep provoking them. With those voices, Leon and Sylvia pulled themselves together. Whether it's just making excuses or forcing themselves to hold on, if they lose their willpower here, it's over. As Elmesia says, if it doesn't work the first time, just try again. I'll go again. Let's keep going. Leon and Sylvia attacked in rapid succession, and Elmesia supported the two of them. That flow naturally formed, and the wave of attacks against Milim repeated itself. And finally, Milim twitched. A look of joy appeared on Leon and Sylvia's faces. But the next moment, a gust of wind knocked them away. Immediately after that, a mass of magical energy flew to where the two of them had been, passing them by, creating a massive explosion in the distance. That explosion was Milim's doing. She casually fired a magic bullet, as if she found their attacks annoying. Elmesia was the first to notice it, and she'd blown them both away one step earlier. If you let your guard down, you really will die. Elmesia's pale face warned them, and Leon and Sylvia simply nodded silently. Zalario was facing Feldway. The two of them stood still in midair, facing each other. It was Feldway who spoke first. Why did you betray me? Hearing this, even the mild-mannered Zalario was indignant. The original story began when Feldway tried to manipulate Zalario. Ignoring that and imposing one's own selfish convenience would be unbearable for Zalario. He retorted sharply, as if to vent his dissatisfaction. Isn't that my line? Why did you control me? He tried to listen to what Feldway had to say, but what came back was a logic Zalario couldn't understand. Domination, you say? That was never my intention. I simply strengthened our bond with authority. That way, my commands can be transmitted more smoothly, don't you think? And Feldway's way of thinking was difficult to understand. What are you saying? Confused from the bottom of his heart, Zalario asked back. However, this didn't work either. Feldway spoke his mind as if he couldn't understand why Zalario was so angry. You were my friends. In that case, what problem is there in unifying our wills? Unifying their wills means complete obedience to Feldway. There is no need for individual thoughts, and objections are not permitted. It was a statement that did not acknowledge Zalario and the others at all. Zalario shuddered. Doesn't this guy even have the concept of respecting others? That's the conclusion he'll come to. Zalario had no choice but to conclude that it would be impossible for them to understand each other without a conversation going this far. Feldway was lonely. He had carried it too much, and it had broken. Zalario realized that, and regretted himself for not noticing the change in his friend. However, here he considered, thinking that he should still be able to make it. At the very least, he should have tried to convince Feldway while he had the will to continue the conversation. Moreover, the power Feldway wielded, having even brought forth his true body, easily overwhelmed Zalario. Witnessing it up close, Zalario could feel Feldway's overwhelming aura on his skin, reaffirming the reality before him. This is beyond my expectations. It's as if the true Veldanava Sama himself has returned. Though there were minor differences, such as hair color, the current Feldway was the spitting image of the Star King Dragon Veldanava from Zalario's memories. To be honest, he didn't feel like he could win. If the goal was to buy time, then continuing to persuade him would be a safer and more reliable option than fighting. As Zalario pondered where to begin, he finally spoke with a solemn tone. Veldanava Sama would not wish for the destruction of the world, would he? What makes you so sure? What? You wouldn't know, but that Great One accepted everything. He allowed all living beings in this diverse world to evolve freely. And what do you think lies at the end of that? It's conflict. After an intense struggle for survival, the world is bound to meet its end. That's precisely why the existence of demon lords is necessary, to prevent that from happening. In other words, even Veldanava Sama wished for the world's peace. Before Zalario could finish his rebuttal, Feldway looked at him with pity. No, you're wrong. I've realized something. Realize what? That every living being born into this world was not granted the privilege of evolution. Rather, it was destined to strive for it, as if it were their inevitable fate. Feldway's words left Zalario troubled. Being forgiven and being fated to do so are very different things. It's not freedom, it's duty. However, the only one who knew his true intentions was Veldanava himself. No matter how a third party like Feldway interpreted it, that meant it was nothing more than the truth to that person. Humans are creatures that believe what they want to believe. But if they neglect the most crucial aspect, whether what they believe is actually true, they will never reach the path of truth. Even Feldway, who should understand this as an administrator, has foolishly fallen into the same trap as those ignorant and small-minded beings. The words of God must be conveyed exactly as they are, without alteration. Interpretation is up to each individual, to be done at their own risk. That being said, if an influential figure misinterprets those words and acts upon them, many who follow them will also suffer misfortune. This is where the difficulty of understanding words truly lies. For Feldway, the right hand of God Veldanava, to be like this, Zalario could only feel overwhelmed by the immense challenge of guiding humanity. However, from the beginning, Veldanava Sama never claimed to be omniscient or omnipotent. He himself acknowledged that he could make mistakes, so for us, his creations, too as well, it is perhaps inevitable. That's what Zalario agrees with. It was useful as a basis for determining how to admonish Feldway from here. If the pursuit of evolution ultimately leads to conflict, then that itself must be the will of the gods. Striving for even greater heights, Daggerul, Twilight, and even Zalanis, who was born in the otherworld, were all given the fate of surpassing their predecessors. Such was their destined burden. It was a feeling that was difficult for beings like us, who were born perfect, to understand, but I feel like I may have grasped it, even if just a little. Zalario tensed up, wondering what Feldway was getting at. In any case, he couldn't afford to miss a single word. No matter what was said, he had to be ready to refute it. A bear was better at this sort of thing. But his dependable colleague was now nothing more than an ice sculpture. With no reinforcements to rely on, this was Zalario's moment to step up. Bracing himself, Zalario focused intently on Feldway's words. Surpassing one's parent, in other words, slaying a god. Those beings must have gained a true connection by struggling to surpass Veldanava Sama. But I don't even have that. Feldway spoke with sad eyes. Zalario spends his time nervously, unable to understand how the conversation connects. As long as it serves as a distraction, that's fine, but engaging with a former friend who speaks nonsense was far more mentally exhausting than expected. However, Zalario's redeeming trait is his seriousness. Zalario grits his teeth. all I can do is, yes, I will fulfill the wish that Veldanava-sama wished for. I will accomplish the end of the world with my own hands. That is the only mission I have left. Feldway declared that with a very refreshing expression. No, no, no. I'm not sure how to react to that. Isn't that just your misunderstanding? What will you do if Veldanava-sama did not actually wish for the destruction of the world? It was a sound argument. It's not like he was ordered to do it directly, so stop acting on your own discretion. In other words, that's the Zalario is trying to say. However, Feldway's response to this left Zalario speechless. What? If that's the case, I don't mind. If a foolish subordinate is about to head down the wrong path, isn't it the duty of their master to fulfill their responsibility and stop them? Wow. I am angry. At the foolish humans who killed a god, and at all those who allowed it to happen. Feldway's going to make a fool out of it here. And then, all at once, he unleashed his anger. More than that, to Veldanava-sama, he never comes back to life, too. In other words, he was angry at Veldanava. He must have felt abandoned by the otherworld for a long time. However, from Zalario's point of view, it is the logic of spouting rice. With that face that looked exactly like Veldanava's, he felt like telling him not to say anything spoiled. Among the primordial 7 angels, Feldway was favored by Veldanava more than anyone. He trusted him the most, and he was useful to him. That is precisely why he was supposed to be given the important mission of monitoring the destruction world dragon Iverge.